It is 7:01 on June 23rd. Ms. Chair, I'll call this meeting of the Issaquah Park Board to order. We'll do a little roll call. I think we're around. Please say present or here if it comes to your turn. Ryan Olson here. David Liu. Katie Bell.
Excused. She don't.
Oh,
Let me know.
Chris Kovac. Excused. Tim Motley. Hannah Novakovic.
Maybe joining us remotely.
Diana Rand.
Here.
Jane Takushi. Marlene Wax.
Hello.
Here. Paula Dare. Here. Martha Gintner.
Here.
Jeff Newell. Here. Good. We have a quorum. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from last month? Any edits or corrections? No corrections on behalf of the board. The minutes are approved. As noted, there's a council meeting tonight, but going around, see if we have any public comments.
Nobody is online.
And then we'll jump into our regular business.
All right. Right. Well done. Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Fantastic. Hi, Jane. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Note in the minutes that Jane has arrived. So this first item is our level of service discussion, right? Really appreciated the conversation we had last month. This is a continuation of that. As we stressed last month, this month is the same in that we're really early in this conversation, but this early work, these early discussions is really going to help us frame and draft at least a first sort of level of service take. Our dance card is pretty full as we're going to have our park tour in July. We typically take a recess in August. As we come back in September, if you remember on our work plan, we're going to be diving into the municipal code, Parks chapter of the municipal code. We have an urban forest management plan we want to, the heritage tree program we want to take a look at. We're going to start master planning work on Tibbetts Valley Park. All that to say, this early work, we're going to see this for a while. We're talking about these last couple of months. We're likely not going to see this or plan to take any action on this till 2026. So I just want to give that context. But again, all this discussion is really helpful. Robin tonight's going to facilitate the discussion. Just to remind you, what we're really trying to do here is take a shift from just a quantity-based level of service, an acres per 1,000 approach to a more performance-based level of service and allow that performance-based level of service. So really understanding how the park is functioning, is it meeting its role, but also give some diversity and understand that when we classify an open space parcel, that has a different performance expectation than a community park like Tibbetts Valley Park. And so we want to have some variance of criteria or expectation of those acres. So it's a tricky thing to do. You'll see in the presentation tonight, some other neighboring cities have been doing this. So we want to sort of present to you how they're doing their approach. Again, get some feedback on some draft criteria tonight. So just going a little deeper. We're going to continue to focus on our 3 active classifications because that was your all priority as we adopted the park plan. So community parks, neighborhood parks, linear parks will be the focus tonight. So thank you for that intro. Robin, please take it away.
Thank you very much. So as Jeff said, we started to look at other cities and how they were doing their level of service based on that performance-based strategy. And the first one I wanted to talk about, because we can look at these and see if we want to adopt.
Ask questions at a high level.
Yeah.
There's a level of service directly connect with like funding, so you generate a certain amount of level of service or a certain amount of funding
Yeah, a variety of things. So level of service really helps us internally in terms of telling the story to our own city council and prioritizing our own capital investments. But then exactly, it helps us know what investments we should be looking to make, both for grants. Also helps us with things like park impact fees, right? As we start assessing future development, hey, what is our level of service and what are we deficient in? And how do we get a little more strategic in either lining fees, grant dollars, just, really any priorities within the system. So, yeah. Level of service is also something you'll see. It's existed for decades in park system plans and parks and open space plans. It's usually, page 80, sort of deep in the document, but it's something that grant funders, as you asked, and others really try and get an understanding of how are you meeting your community's needs. And again, not just what I said early, for many, many decades, the standard bearer for level of service was acres per 1,000 people. So as long as you had X number of acres per your population, you've got a great park system. And as professionals, we've realized, you know what? It's not always true. You can have an abundance of acres, but none of it's developed, or it's all in terrible shape, all super tired, and that's not necessarily telling the whole story.
Yeah, so a lot of park districts, a lot of park systems cities are moving over to this new strategy of performance-based. The acreage was started, I think, by NRPA several years ago, and now they're recommending to go to a more individualized approach. So that's why we want to move in that direction and make sure our park system really meets the needs of the community. So the first one we looked at was Bellevue, and Bellevue uses the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. It's called the SCORT plan as a guideline. And much like we have to submit every 6 years, we need to submit that park plan system update. Every 5 years, Washington State, particularly the RCO and the RCO funding board, updates their SCORT plan to satisfy the state's comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. So they kind of have to do the same thing that we have to do in order to get funding, but they get theirs from the Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund Act. So what Bellevue did was kind of use this as a guideline approach, and their metrics include individual active participation, a percentage of the population that participates in one or more active outdoor activities, public satisfaction, and walkable access service area. So what SCORP really does is takes a look at all the amenities and how active people can be with those amenities. And they come up with a scoring system rating, typically 1 to 5 based on that. So they'll look at all the assets and then make that recommendation or use that score. The whole goal, it really is to make our parks more accessible for equity purposes, but also to get people outdoors and get a healthier lifestyle going within their city, within their community, and really focusing on those disadvantaged areas to make sure their parks are equitable. So one of the good benefits about using the SCORE plan is we could benchmark against statewide standards and averages, because you're looking at the scoring the same way every year. So it's a nice way to gauge where you are relative to other cities within Washington State.
One of the trade-offs as we have this discussion after we go through these is, and we need to do a little more research and talk with Bellevue further, but how does this reflect park by park?
Mm-hmm.
Is this an overall score, or how do we, again, differentiate, Crossroads Park in Bellevue? That's a community park, right? How is that different than we own a park, which is, an open space parcel down on Lake Sammamish? So we'd want to better understand, does it give that granular level of focus so that we can really take a park by park look.
Mm-hmm. And then they pull that into implementation strategies.
Are those the 3 bullet points equally weighted?
I don't think so on this one. Because there's some access and equity, resource protection and management is part of the score, but they they didn't include that necessarily in theirs. We'd have to dig into that a little more, I'm sure.
We could
Thank you.
see the details of their formula, but I think the point being made with Bellevue is they took this performance-based LOS approach and blended it with this state scoring system, SCORP. Acronym kind of cracks me up, but yeah, so it's one way of looking at it.
Mhm. And Kirkland uses quite a different strategy. They use a geo-reference amenity standards program, or the GRASS program, where they're really looking specifically and more exclusively about the assets within the park. And those are cataloged, and they're looking at scoring of amenities, the quality and condition, the type, proximity, and connectivity. They use a lot of GIS mapping with the GRASP system to visualize spatially relative to other parks. That also helps them bring demographics into the mix as well, and seeing where a majority of their community is using a particular park. It really supports a lot of analysis and planning as well. The benefit of this one is that it offers a quantifiable and repeatable method of analysis based on a data-driven and decision-making process. Once you go through it, it's kind of like we have our cartograph that's getting set up right now to catalog all our assets. They're doing something similar to that.
And what is the GIS mapping exactly? Like,
So the GIS is where they're actually kind of geotagging specific amenities or assets. It could be trails, it could be a playground, it could be a bench, fields. But they break it down a little bit further. It's not just one athletic or multi-use field. They'll break it down specifically into softball or soccer, or kind of create a more tuned in system.
This mirrors the next city, Kent, a little bit. I'm familiar with that one. And that it really is age of amenities, condition of amenities plays a really important role in this metric, right? With that idea that, hey, the older something gets, the more you're having to maintain it, and the benefit, the function that it's serving to the community is also beginning to diminish. So really, I think this level of service systems trying to track that and recognize that.
Question, if I can. So two apps that I use a lot is WTA Trailblazers and All Trails.
Mm-hmm.
Does this track usage of, because like in Bellevue, there's the botanical gardens, and then in Kirkland, there are other just attractions. Does it kind of track that usage or attraction to those
specific parks or any
Facilities,
parks or any
yeah.
trails? Don't know how those two cities do it. There's another piece of technology that's part of you're going to see in any of these metrics, and we're going to talk about this later, we can talk about it now, is usage is always been a really hard thing for park systems to grasp,
course,
right?
yeah.
There's no turnstile. There's
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
we don't have staff doing clickers. There's some
Yeah.
technology that's beginning to arrive at a public scale level that allow us to tap into, right, how people are using this and
Yeah, I mean.
and any
this
of
will
those,
tell you,
any of those.
I'm not-
So.
I'm on the reindeer trail.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't say this as a marketing pitch, but
Yeah.
Placer AI is one
Yeah.
of these programs that would allow cities, City of Kent just purchased it a couple of years ago. And you're able to identify how many people are using that specific trail, how many people are using that park. It would allow us to do something like, hey, what did Rainier Trail usage look like before Jacob? What does Rainier Trail usage look like now?
Yeah.
Right, so there's some technologies that we're in the midst of talking with administration about, that as we make this jump to level of service, utilizing some of those tools could really, really be helpful. Yes,
Curious, thank you.
great question.
Yeah, and the advantage to those tools is you can go back several years, is my understanding,
Right.
and pull data from that as well. But
So I think any of our criteria or metrics or formulas when we start thinking of usage, we think it's a pretty important metric. We would
Yeah.
really like to become more savvy at being able to collect that.
Yeah.
Throughout the system.
Thank you.
And Kent digs in a little bit deeper. They came up with an overall park condition score. They use a multiplier, and then they multiply that by the recreational amenities to get a recreational value for every park. And then what they do is similar to what NRPA originally did, is they multiply that by Kent's population divided by 1,000, and that's how they come up with their score for the level of service. So really they're focusing on the quality of the number of amenities as well. This is really beneficial for indicating the degree of which current parks are performing to their potential. And it also allows them to look, they also do a potential recreational value. So they'll look at a park, say like Tibbetts Park, and say, okay, well, here's what could be here. So therefore that's what the potential value of that park is. So that helps again align with planning, filling in gaps, and scoring the park for future decisions. But it really shows, how much of the PRV of undeveloped properties can add to the park system. So they just include another future layer onto their metrics.
Do all these communities have a park board?
Most have a park board or a park commission. I know Kent does. I know Kirkland, I'm pretty certain Bellevue does. If you're asking about these, but then
Just.
in general, I would say 90+% of the cities in Puget Sound area have a park board or park commission. Yeah.
So if we kind of drop back into the 2024 Park System Plan update, we did a baseline metrics that included access, comfort and image, use, activities and sociability, environmental sustainability, and economic potential. But again, when we did this, we realized that we were comparing, say, a community park to open space, and they're really not apples to apples. So we want to be able to potentially have core metrics and then separate out specific metrics depending on the classification of the park. So we went ahead and decided thought about what example core metrics, just based on our discussion last time, based on what we saw in the Park System Plan update. And kind of the common ground we found was condition assessment. Excuse me. How old are the amenities within the park? Is the park safe and is the park clean? We looked at number of amenities, how many amenities are within the park, and what are the different amenities in the park. We don't necessarily have to have the same equipment or same recreation facilities in every single park. We want to be able to diversify those. Accessibility, is a park accessible for all ages and abilities? We talked a lot about connectivity and access, particularly for seniors and for young kids. Obviously, connectivity, creeks to peaks. Does a park provide connectivity to other system assets or connections? And number of people using the park. Analysis of resident participation rates. How many are using the park? What activities are they engaged in? Where are they coming from? Like, are the neighborhood parks being used by the neighbors, or are they being used by other people from other neighborhoods? So for classification metrics for our community park, just based on our discussion last time and what.
I just stop for a second.
Yeah.
So as Robin's spelling this out, and maybe you are all following along, but just to clarify, as we began thinking, hey, what could a draft formula look like here for Issaquah? We started, and what you're seeing tonight is this idea of sort of two filters, right? Every park would go through the sort of these core metrics, and then there would be these special classification metrics within each type. So,
Right. Yeah. So for our community parks, we're looking at event capacity. How many and what type of events can be held in the park? Theoretically, the community parks are our largest parks and able to hold more people, more events, more activities. Looking at programming capabilities, You know, because we are so land constrained, as we keep saying, how many activities can we actually fit in one park? And are we able to use those year round, which I think is critical and something that we'll need to look at closer. The economic value, what is the revenue benefit of the park programming? We want to look at multimodal access, proximity to transit, in particular for community parks, trail access, sidewalks, bike paths, multimodal. How are people actually connecting to and getting to the parks? One last metric we could look at is our environmental goals. That's a lot of information and feedback we heard from the park system plan update is that we do want to be more environmentally conscious. We want to be more resilient with our parks. So is there green infrastructure in that park and how well is it doing? And knowing moving forward, as we design parks, we're going to have to be incorporating more green infrastructure in it to handle flood control, mitigation, and other environmental factors.
Just understanding, even within our community park classification, understanding really each one of our community parks has a relationship to the environment around it. Tibbetts Creek going through Tibbetts Valley Park, Central Park with Grand Ridge sort of all around it, right? So there's, we would want to make sure there's this understanding of importance of environmental goals and strategy even within our active parks.
Okay, jumping over to our neighborhood park. Potential metrics could be, again, neighborhood attendance. How many people from a 1/2 mile radius use the park? And that's our goal, is that everybody within a 1/2 mile should have access to a park, be able to walk to a park within 1/2 mile. We want to look at safety of the park. That's something that came up during our last meeting and of course during the park system plan update was what active and passive uses does, safety of the park. How safe does the park feel? How safe is it at different hours and for different ages or different abilities? Another one, accessibility. How many people walk or ride to the park? For the most part, neighborhood parks are going to be more walkable, less driving because usually there's less spaces there. So how do people get to the park? What's their main mode of transportation? One thing I heard last meeting was shade and comfort. Are there shady and comfortable spots in the park to sit and relax? We all know what it feels like to be incredibly hot outside where you can't get into any shade. And so, and to support, our canopy coverage. Do we have enough shade and trees in the parks? Which obviously then lowers our temperature overall. And the last one, demographics of the park users. Is the park satisfying the needs of the demographics of the neighborhood? And again, are we looking for disadvantaged areas where we need to increase the amount of amenities and assets within that park to fulfill that neighborhood's needs?
Is the safety of the park, is that where it's something about active and passive uses? Is that where amenities would go, like picnic benches and like, is that where all that stuff?
Yeah. Right. Different types of seating, out in the open. You're looking at more design and style. Can you see into the park? Is the landscape design suitable for that area?
And the idea of this,
Lighting.
idea in this concept too is that the core metrics would still be being measured for neighborhood parks. So age of the amenity, condition of the amenity. Yeah.
Question, if I may?
Yeah.
Are these listed in priority order?
No, I don't know. And that's something that we can, discuss as time goes on if we want to weight certain things differently than others.
Yeah, as I think about this list, safety of the park seems front loaded to me in terms of just like if I don't think a park is safe, I'm not going there. You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to upset the apple cart. I'm just curious if there's a way we can. And, you know, it's probably a big discussion about how it gets weighted, but
It leads to,
I just think
that's a lot of the detailed work that is gonna be coming. You're right. These are not prioritized, nor are they weighted. But
Sure.
is that something that we might want to consider doing if we're creating our own formula?
yeah.
Those will be discussions and decisions to.
Right now, it's just a question. I just, you know.
No, it's really good. It's really
Appreciate
good. I think, you know, tonight, I hope what we're really beginning to grasp is, as we think of how our parks are performing, not every park is created equal.
Mhm.
Right. Neighborhood parks really should have they have a distinct role that's different than our community parks,
Mm.
which are different, again, than our open space tracks. There's value in us, I think, recognizing that and realizing that in terms of how we're asking how they're doing.
Yeah. Thank you.
And for our third one is our linear park. So example metrics could be multiple neighborhood attendance. And a linear park, we think is located really more in urban or commercial environments. So it is going to be thinner. It is going to be in a more urbanized area.
So think
So
Rainier Trail.
different, yeah,
Think Rainier Trail,
Timber Trail.
great example of a linear park.
So how many people in neighborhoods from within a half-mile radius again use the park? We'll go back to safety of the park. How safe is the park for a variety of user groups? Typically in an urban area, you're going to have a stronger mix maybe of demographics or different people utilizing that park. So how is that? Is it feeling safe for everybody there in different cultures? Amenity support, how many and what type of seating is available? Again, if you're in a more urban area, you're going to have different types of seating. Is that enough? Is it suitable for the neighborhood and people that use it? Suitable for the design of the park? And then we have trail or sidewalk width, because more than likely people will access this linear park through a trail or a sidewalk or a multimodal path. What is the width of the trail within the park? Is it multimodal capable also? And the last one we were thinking was connectivity to key destinations. Is the park connected to key elements in the neighborhood or the system? Which kind of ties back into creeks to peaks as well. But again, in a more urbanized area, is it tied to maybe the grocery store? Can you stop by after the grocery store or the movie theater or just more urban elements? So we kind of took a first shot at an example rating system per classification. So we have our core metrics that we would utilize throughout all the classifications. We take our core metric score, combine it with the classification metric score that we come up with to come up with a overall park score. We would then, similar to Kent, maybe take that park score, multiply it by Issaquah's population and divide it by 1,000 to come up with our level of service. And I think our thoughts behind that where the Issaquah's population is going to change and vary. So as long as we make sure our amenities are keeping up with that change and change in demographics, maybe even, that would be probably a more accurate level of service.
Yeah, bringing population into it also just understands scale and as more people are living in Issaquah, right, the same number of acres there's going to be a burden that's put on it. Being cognizant of that. A lot more, Jane's question was spot on because this is really, really high level, right? So the weighting, the prioritization within, to get to a core metric score and a classification metric score, we're not trying to have that or even model that tonight, but this is just giving a high level sense of how these two types of metrics could play together.
And then do we want to bring in a weighted average for, say, creek or buffer adjacencies like Tibbetts? it's a large park, but a lot of it is within the buffer area. So that's gonna impact what we're capable of doing within that park as well. So does that need to be factored into our scoring or a rating system or a metric in and of itself?
Or is that environmental metric within those classifications, recognizing, hey, Tibbetts Valley Park is a community park, but it's also going to have a really important environmental connection role and an environmental stewardship role.
So we just want to open up this discussion. I know that's a lot of information going out here all at once.
So my question, so it's like, I like the idea of it. I think it makes sense. Really, two parks need to be judged by what they're intended to do and just a global doesn't make sense. So I like the structure. My question, especially since you brought up the other towns, is it doesn't seem like they're doing it. Maybe they are, and that's just more, you just gave us the broad data. And so the question is like, if they aren't doing it, why not? Is it just for the simplicity of their systems? And if so, are we going to be making it so too complex and thus unable to do it? Like gathering this data on every part likely is going to be a big job, whatever, on a regular basis, stuff like that. So is the complexity we're doing this, too big, and that's why other people don't do it, or are they are doing it, we're just not seeing it?
Great question. So when you say other city, other than the three that we showed, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
they still seem to be, I don't know whether they, like you're saying, like how we split up the type of parks and what they're doing. Like, are they doing that level of?
They are to varying degrees. I know Kent is, I believe Kirkland and Bellevue is to some degree. There's score again for various types of parks. We would need to drill in, there's some complexity to the formula. You bring up a great point, Paul, and it's something Robin and I have talked about as we even just have this discussion tonight. We need to be pragmatic and really practical in what is doable. And I think our goal is to utilize, be really smart about data to see how our parks are truly performing, but honestly, do it simply in a simple enough way that we can do it, that it's repeatable year after year, and not such a huge lift that, boy, that's a neat looking formula, but are you really able to put it into practice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Thank you for asking it, because it's really important. We need it to be practical.
I think my question is adjacent to that one. And that, is there a way to like test and learn into this? Like maybe take a piece out versus saying like, hey, we're not even gonna actually action any of this until 2026. Like, are there any pieces that we can take a small group and learn now from like a little group of parks or something?
It's a great approach. And yes, I think as it might feel like we're about to go dark for a couple of months. You're right. Before this comes back, I think as this comes back with a draft, we'll want to sort of test it and be testing it, and probably do a lot more research on, what are the true details of some of those other cities as well. But
Or even just pick one. If you think neighborhood parks are the easiest and the most the same, pick a group of them and see how it goes.
yeah, exactly. Yep. It's a great approach. Great idea.
So some of these, I love what you're doing with this, and I think it's, well written, a lot of thought's been put into it. There are some of these metrics that are objective, some of them are quite subjective. And so when you blend those two, you have to be very careful, right? And I'm not sure exactly how you do that here, but I see kind of a watch out because of trying to blend those two together.
Excuse me.
And, you mentioned SMART, and what popped in my mind was SMART goals from, corporate specific, measurable, actionable, and blending that kind of thinking into this, making it like in a SMART goal format. And if you're going to blend subjective and objective data, having it spelled out pretty clearly how you're going to do that.
Yes.
Because it can get messy.
That's a great point, Tim. And honestly, until I think as we explore the how and see how other cities are doing it, I mentioned Bellevue, the score does have a satisfaction element, right? So it's a community survey that, hey, how do you like this park? And that's exactly what you're saying. That's a real subjective thing. And, you know, do we take that approach, or some cities have, you know, another less subjective way to say, hey, how are people liking the park is how are they using the park, right? So something like Placer AI telling us, or, you know, is this a place that people are gathering and
And if you're going to ask questions like that, again, you'll be very careful how you phrase the question. You know, it has to be neutral. It's not like, hey, did you have a great time? Or was there anything wrong? You know, and you can get very different responses
Right.
depending on how you word the question. So,
oh, you're right. How did you like this really great park?
yeah.
The really
That's-
practical things, like there was a question of, is the park clean? And when, you know, I used to have 2 dogs, and I would take my dogs for a walk, and they'd be like, where can I dispose of, you know, what my dog did? And very often it was like, I have to bring it home, and
There's no trash cans.
because there were no trash cans, and there was nothing to keep the park clean that didn't have any, you know, barriers to it,
Mhm.
you know, so.
Interesting to see. You just presented this group with like 3 parks in the same classification. And we gave our scores, what we think that is per park, and then see what pops out of this formula.
No, that's a great sort of model.
What's the parameter?
Brain's working a little different than some of this
Yeah.
other stuff. I'd love to just
So you're saying,
calculate, search, punch numbers.
okay, Central Park, Tibbetts Valley Park, Confluence Park, all our community parks. What I'm hearing you say is, hey, we have a draft formula. We're gonna, you know, do this, but we're just gonna ask you anecdotally, right?
Yeah.
You know, how do you think those 3 are performing? And see how, Does-
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah.
at least you, if you even did something, at least understand what the output would look like.
correct, and are these outputs making sense to what we are experiencing and what residents are experiencing? And I think that's what brought us here, right? I mean, you know, we adopted a park system plan that again dipped our toe in that level of service, but it was pretty clear in our conversations, right? That, hey, a universal performance goal for community parks and open space doesn't make sense. It doesn't register with what we're experiencing.
And even like what brings you to Tibbetts Park or Central Park or Rainier Trail? I mean, so for me, what brings me to Rainier Trail every day is this stupid thing tells me
It's time to walk.
you haven't taken your walk, and like I know that if I go from my condo to the end of, you know, the end of Rainier Trail and turn around and come back, I'll get a little check mark on this.
Mhm.
And so it's like, what brings you to that? And then what brings you to that space, and what might bring you to a different space, or, you know, whatever it might be. But I mean, I think it's, yeah.
And what makes you want to stay in that space versus just
Right,
utilize that for a pass through?
yeah.
Well, that starts playing into park planning and what amenities we should have in every park. And I again, soapbox, my own personal belief, being in the parks profession, I think every neighborhood park and community park should have a loop trail.
Yeah.
Because again, many people are there to walk, or even a sports complex should have a loop trail, because how many parents, while kids are practicing, will sit in the
Yeah.
car, or, no, I'm gonna go off the
I'm
loop.
gonna go
So,
on. Cause this stupid thing is.
Yeah, and it feels good when it passes.
It does, but it's also like, get on my back.
So one thing on here that's kind of, what two things, under the neighborhood park, shade and comfort. It's great for a few months out of the year, but a lot of the months out of the year, I love it. There's a spot where I'm in the park and the sun hits me.
So sunlight.
True, yeah, so that balance. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you could contour that into something that can be seasonally appropriate.
Mhm.
Because
Comfort kind of does,
comfort,
yeah, like that's comfort is going to apply differently to different.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right, you don't want to say, hey, we checked the shady box, or there's a ton of shade, but this is so dreary and doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe.
Or
right?
comfort and shelter being either from the sun or the rain.
Yeah, the sun and the rain.
Yeah.
And safety, I would, and I'm sure you're gonna drill down into this deeper, but you know, that means different things to different people. You know,
Absolutely.
are the monkey bars in working order, you know? Are the swing seats stable? Or, but then you could be personal safety. You know,
Overall
is there-
sense of safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
The lighting is.
it's a lighting, yeah. And
In the winter time, it's darker than it is.
And when you talk about like the safety plays into like you know, the linear parks, when you talk about the paths and the trails, well, there's a pothole in the middle of the trail that
Right.
affects safety.
So,
Yeah, so again, just defining it a little bit,
Yeah.
what you mean with the terms.
Mhm.
I think what you mean is personal safety. So you feel like there's not any threat to your person while you're there,
Mhm.
but it can be interpreted different ways.
Right,
Oh.
right.
You're right, it gets complex, but again, we want to make this simple, but you're right, Tim, understanding as we're measuring maintenance of an amenity, there's a safety gradient to that as we're scoring, hey, is this a really old trail that hasn't been resurfaced in a while? Is this an old playground that we're repairing it? You know, our pattern, we're visiting that thing every 2 months, right? I mean, you know, as we score the age of it, we're sort of probably bringing a safety component into it. But you're right, then there's this, so that's qualitative, right? I mean, or I should say quantitative. We can measure that, right? The subjective, do residents feel safe in this park? I would say, though that's qualitative, that's really, really important to the performance of a park. Because if someone doesn't feel safe there, right, they're not going to use it. And if the people that are, I mean, I've often said this about many parks, right? That if the people there doing unsanctioned recreation feel safe, and people that want to do sanctioned recreation don't feel safe, that you're losing that park. You need to have the reverse. It's those that are there to recreate and do sanctioned uses, you want them feeling really safe.
Yeah.
And if the person wanting to do unsanctioned uses doesn't feel safe or feel like they can do it, you're on the right track.
Can I ask a question in regard to that? I'm wondering if there is like a list of 4 or 5 parks in Issaquah that you might, if y'all don't want to do this, it's totally fine. But the parks that I'm aware of are Central Park and Rainier Trail.
Mhm.
I feel like I would be much better equipped to have an opinion about the parks in Issaquah if I had like a list of 4 or 5 parks that represent 80% or 90% of the parks in Issaquah
Mhm.
that I could go to and visit and just be like, oh, you know, are there everything that we've been talking about?
Mhm.
But I mean, this is my first term on the Parks Board. So like, I would just so appreciate homework to go and visit parks, again, maybe 4, 5, 6, whatever, that represent 80 or 90% of the parks in Issaquah that I could then come to these meetings with a greater understanding of safety, amenities, accessibility, shade and comfort, all that kind of thing. So I don't know if that,
I'll
I don't know if that would
happy
be
to,
doable, but
happy to equip you. We'll make sure you have access to our park system plan.
like a list of just 4 or 5 parks, go see them, go experience them, and then I could come back with a greater sense. Cause like I'm a creature of habit. My watch tells me to go take a walk. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go say hi to Jacob Two Trees. And, I have a path that I go on and it's my path and, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, in July. It's all
Good
good.
folks up for that, but I just.
Under directors report, we'll also be talking about our park tour we'll be doing in July
Right.
together. So our
Yeah.
July meeting, and we're gonna go out and
Okay.
to a handful of parks.
Great.
As I said last month, happy to schedule a one-on-one little park tour.
Sure.
And go check some out.
Yeah.
Parks and Trails.
I'll bring you a map.
Yeah. No, that's super helpful. So again,
It's all good.
I'm not trying to sign you all up for everything. But I just that would just help me to,
Be more familiar with everything.
yeah.
Sure.
Again, creature of habit,
It just says you onboard, start here, right? Start with
Yeah.
parks and
parks and trails.
parks, community services.
Yeah, I say hi every day.
Yeah.
You spend onboarding on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any thoughts on some of those rating systems or different cities? Again, we've got more research to do.
I think in general, the issue of scale is really relevant, I think. As much as we can evaluate the effectiveness of a park based on how close it is to residents and to the greater community. As I was going through the pre-work, I was like, that makes a lot of sense to be able to have a multiplier of the population,
Yeah.
I like the Bellevue one, okay. I can't like, it has too many numbers and multipliers and you can get those.
It's pretty complex.
It's intense.
Yeah.
Of the three, it's
And anytime there's that many mathematical manipulations.
bigger city, bigger staff. Yeah.
False precision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like, getting other input. I just think it's so important, and because we could all be sitting here and thinking that Tibbetts Valley is the best park ever, and this is amazing. And-
Nobody in this room thinks.
Wow. Okay.
Not yet, Mark.
Or the news.
Okay. I just have right
That's
in
good.
there.
It's like a softball. You just-
Yeah.
There you go.
But I just feel like I cannot stress it enough to make it as simple as you can. I mean, I just, because if not, we're just gonna get, data paralysis, and then you're just gonna be focusing too much on gathering the data. Because honestly, I look at the two of you, you have great staff.
Right.
You all know. I bet you could probably right now to figure out or provide a score to every single one of our parks. Without any of this data, just because you just know so much about what's going on. I just feel like, just keep it as simple as possible. And I feel
And then
like
community
sometimes
outreach.
the public satisfaction is huge and weighted pretty highly.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, those are the key people that you need to, in order for these parks.
Yeah.
As long as we get it good enough. So I think the problem with communities surveys is who takes them and who doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Response rate.
Yeah.
So, and guess what? So that's on us, right? So we need to do our fair share and help, grab as many people that take the survey as possible. And try to give those opportunities, advocate for effective or no. I don't know.
Very good.
Got concerts on the green, everyone's in a good mood, let's get a survey, I just feel like.
Think it's this fast.
There's a real, there's just, that's really key data.
Yeah.
Really is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'd say if we're doing that, then we bring the equity council in to figure out.
For
a way
sure.
To do that.
Yes.
The equity piece. And
Absolutely. Because you do want to get,
Just trying to get a bit of a big balance of, you know, everybody could measure.
Yeah.
So I agree about the simplicity piece, but it's, as long as it's not simplistic. Right, so as long as it's, we've gone through like the we understand it deeply enough
Mhm.
to not jump to conclusions. And I'm sure that's, excuse me, I'm sure that's.
It's a balance, right? We don't want to be oversimplified that it has value,
Yeah.
but it's robust enough that it's truly giving us a good representation of what's happening, but done in a simple enough way that the size of staff and this, we're able to manage it.
Yeah.
Not burdened by it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Here, here.
Just a note, it does look like Hannah just.
Diana's hand was up.
No, Hannah just joined.
Oh, hi, Hannah.
Oh, I
Hi,
didn't
you
raise
guys.
my hand. Was I? Okay.
I didn't say raise hand, I just said join.
Okay. All good.
okay.
Okay, well, thank you. All, again, helpful information. Again, we're really early in this work. These discussions really help us, and in some ways, thank you. If they're affirmation to me, Robin, that we're gonna strive to keep it simple,
Yes.
to be as complete as possible, but as simple as possible as well, so. Really helpful, and Marlene, thank you. I really like that idea of, when you see this again, we wanna kind of bring a couple of test runs. Right, here, we sampled this with all of our neighborhood parks, and here's what it produces. Really like that. Cool, thank you.
It's looking good down there.
Yeah,
What's that? Oh, pedestrian park,
yeah.
I had no idea that space was so big. You couldn't have told it.
Oh, I know.
I'm really trying to tell you, it's like, this
I
is
know.
wider than.
We're gonna be like, this would be better if you drew it to scale.
Yeah.
People would be like, this is to scale, I swear, we're all like.
Do we have an ETA when that will be done? I've read it somewhere and I can't remember, I'm sorry.
We're looking at the first 2 weeks in August. So we're getting super excited. We're getting so close. So yeah, we dropped the water feature Monday night, this coming Monday. Coming
Drop
in the
it
middle of the
delicately with a
night.
crane, not drop
Not
it.
drop. Yeah, so once that's in, and the electrical's all in, we can hook everything and start testing it. Landscape is all done, shelter's almost done, so we're getting super
Yeah,
close.
senior center will probably be
Yeah.
open a little bit before pedestrian park. We anticipate doing a soft opening, much like we did with Hillside. We're not gonna wait for a ribbon cutting. We're really gonna let the community start using it and then have a ribbon cutting sometime in September.
Mhm. Yeah, every day it's different, every day out there. So it's getting exciting.
All right, so next item, Chair Olson, we're gonna jump to.
So, next item. Creeks to Peaks, 3 Trails Crossing Road.
So we've been working with our consultant, and based on our ideas from, I believe, May's meeting, our joint board meeting, tweaked April, tweaked the design a little bit. So we wanted to bring that back to everybody. Let's see if I can get rid of this somehow. So the preferred option that we all looked at 3 options last time, and everyone seemed to prefer the first option. Just want to walk you through the deck one more time. So this I think, is everyone familiar with the 3 creeks?
This,
Yeah, I don't know.
so this is the intersection. If I'm gonna play Dana White. Can I play Dana White?
Yeah.
Can I try to? Gilman Boulevard. So this is where Gilman and Juniper joins Gilman. It's a relatively new stoplight that was put in. It was put in with what's called a scramble intersection, though not really signed all that well, meaning there's a component when all traffic stops and it's just pedestrians and pedestrians can cross either way. A key reason for that was this intersection with Gilman is a key trail intersection, and that this is the beginning of the Rainier Trail. So as you head down Rainier Avenue, Confluence Park, down here heading towards Old Town. This is the end or beginning, depending on which way you're going, of the East Lake Sammamish Trail, King County's rail system. So a really, really important trail connection that over the decades, those two trails never really had as strong a relationship as they really could have. So a part of this project is really strengthening, hey, East Lake Sam Trail didn't end. You keep going into Old Town, go to Squawk Mountain, go visit Jacob, etc. And then there's also the Juniper Trail, which is a really key east-west trail. And as we start thinking long-term about east-west connections, that trail is really, really important. Does that help set?
Just as a reminder, the white is snow.
Thank you. This is snow.
I saw that. I was
That's,
like,
Snow where it melted on the concrete.
Thank you, Ryan.
So one of the key elements, though, that we wanted to emphasize for the scramble was emphasizing safety going across the scramble. Because right now with just the white lines, it's a little difficult to see what you're supposed to do. The signs are way up high or they're on the light poles. So what we wanted to do is emphasize the crossing and the main crossing from East Lake Sam down to Rainier Trail and then over to Juniper, and from Juniper over to the Rainier Trail, with similar stripes that you see crosswalks right now, except for color them blue. And I think we've gotten the sign off from Public Works to do it. It's just a matter of scheduling and timing on that, because there's only one subcontractor, I think, in the area that does it. So we need to get on their schedule.
And the concept with blue, again, was trying to just tell the creeks to peaks, just as a.
Right. So this is our southern corner for leading into the Rainier Trail coming across from East Lake Sam. So one of the comments was to put the mountain more in perspective. So if you're standing there as a pedestrian or a bicyclist, you could actually see it a little bit better. So he did force that perspective. Tim, you had the comment coloring some of the curbs the same color, so that matches. So we thought we'd be able to do that over here by the bike lane and then coming around the corner. And I like that idea. It really pops it out a little bit more for vehicles as well. And then the view on the right is coming from, let's see, if we're going across from Rainier over to Juniper and just emphasizing larger pieces of the juniper bush and the various, the juniper trees.
Another component of this art piece is hopefully some traffic calming, right? So, I mean, with a lot happening in terms of pedestrians and all these trails, again, Gilman's really important. We don't want to disrupt flow of Gilman, but if this has a sense of, okay, I need to kind of pay attention as a driver, it's important.
And
It is. But I mean, it's like, it's great to, like, if you're driving there, you're like, oh, I could take a walk. I mean, it draws attention to.
right, there's parking.
Great, yeah,
So,
yeah.
And this is leading over to Lake Sam along East Lake Sam
East Lake
Trail.
Sammamish Trail.
The lake and some of the vegetation, some of the Issaquah Alps in the background there. And then on the kitty corner to that would be going down Gilman on the this would be the east side, northeast side.
So Gilman Lofts, if you know that new building. What's that? Yeah,
Right,
yep,
exactly.
precisely.
Then pulling more mountain, the mountain theme and a little bit more of the lake, but really focusing more on the Alps and some of the vegetation there that you see.
Diana has.
Yeah. Diana.
Hey, yeah, so I was wondering if there is any plan to color code those road crossings or add any informational element to this painting, because I'm very familiar with the area. I know which trails I need to take to get where, but if I were like a visitor from out of town, there's very little signage currently, kind of like there's these wooden signposts and there's a leafline kiosk that shows the leafline trail system. But for example, if I were cycling in Seattle, I would see signs at every major intersection showing the distance to like the next landmark or intersection. So I was wondering if there's any plans to add that type of information.
Yeah, Diana, yes, there is. So we do have some of our wayfinding bollards there at the intersection. We'd want to, reinforce those, see if those need to be moved so that they're more prominent. We've also talked about the idea of a kiosk on the Rainier Trail side, much like, King County has for East Lake Sam, sort of referencing their regional trail system, but having something on the Rainier Trail side that really reinforces the city trail system. And so people have a better sense of where they might adventure and explore. But
Yeah, the thing about the kiosks is like, if I'm on my bike, I usually have to stop to kind of read and take in the kiosk map versus intersection signage just kind of points in a direction and I can see the next 3 closest landmarks, for example, and they'll say something like, I don't know, like 1.2 miles or, yeah, so it would be nice to have information that can kind of be consumed by cyclists without coming to a full stop.
yeah, that's really good feedback. So even, our bollards, maybe having some mileage markers noted.
Yes, we just want to get your feedback on these changes and see if you like that, you would like to tweak it anymore. Okay. Sounds good.
I'm too lazy to ride a bike, so I appreciate her feedback.
That's great feedback, Dan. You're right. We want this functional, right? I mean, so we're really trying to, again, I'm sorry I missed the joint meeting with the Arts Commission, but, art plays a really key role in placemaking, but we want the art to be functional, right? And I think the opportunity we have to really, emphasize this connection between especially the Rainier Trail and the East Lake Sammamish Trail. Do it in an artistic way, bring some whimsy to Gilman Boulevard, but also we want it to be really, really functional and something that supports more people understanding that the Rainier Trail doesn't stop. It just becomes something else, and you can continue to explore.
And potentially the blue stripes being a catalyst for using those elsewhere as well, down the Rainier Trail. And tie that together throughout the creative district.
Right, even as the Rainier Trail has crossings, how do we do this? Or if you want to talk next steps at all, as you and Amy are thinking.
So next steps, well, now that we have agreement on the design, we'll work with Jake about scheduling a time. We're thinking in August. We have to coordinate some closures of the trail, the rerouting of people. But to be able, he needs to order the paint about a month ahead of time. So we have this little window right now that we can do that. So we're hoping that in August we can get him started, get him painting.
So this ostensibly will be complete this summer?
Correct.
That's the goal.
Yeah, that's our goal.
Great. Another new art piece.
Right.
I have a request from you guys. I know we're super busy, but when things like this do happen, like project launches, if you guys could let us know, that would be awesome.
Absolutely, yes.
Instead of waiting for like another board meeting, so.
Exactly, yeah. We'll have a project page for it also. on the
That's a great point. It's sending you all just a little park
Yeah,
board. Hey,
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. We'll figure it out. Yep. Thank you.
That's it from our end.
So many fun things happening.
What's going on? Bite.
Well, that is our regular business. Moving right along,
All right.
director's report.
Is it me first?
Point of order.
To change that.
5A.
Let the chair go.
5A.
Is that 5A? 5A.
We're
Cool.
5A.
Yeah, a couple of updates. I'm gonna update you on Lake Samana State Park. Before I do that, though, I'm gonna pass out Concerts on the Green. If you haven't seen the posters around town, please feel free to take one. Or check online, but let your friends know, your neighbors know. Next Tuesday night will be the first concert at Community Center Green. Really good mix of artists this year. If you love your classic 80s, or you love your yacht rock, or you love your Taylor Swift, actually a little Taylor Swift cover band wraps it up. Chicago. So the goal of these is bringing some diversity of music, but also just realizing fun summer sounds is what people love to come and enjoy. So that's concerts. Here we go into summer. Lake Samana State Park. Thank you all for the feedback and conversation we had last month. A lot has been happening in this last month. If you remember, the next night I was going with staff. We were having a conversation with our city council committee. Really good discussion there as well. Some really good feedback and support from council for us to continue to pursue that partnership with Lake Samana State Park. If you remember, this was the discussion on with the loss or the termination of Issaquah Soccer Club in their maintenance agreement of the soccer fields. State Parks has asked us if we, the city, would consider maintenance and management on a short-term scale with potential long-term use. Really strong support from city council in that. We have had a couple of continued conversations with state parks. We're now in the midst of drafting an agreement. If you remember our discussions, we've proposed doing an 18-month agreement. That's how we'll frame this. That will take us through the end of 2026, which coincides really nicely with our city biennial budget process, which could really help us sort of learn from these 18 months. And then should there be longer term agreement, we'll be that much more informed as we go into our 27-28 budget process. So times up really well. State Park supports that. It times up well with if you remember, I mentioned their management plan update. They're updating their state park management plan for Lake Samana State Park. And they have some really important questions they need to answer and explore in terms of the role of athletic fields in Lake Samana State Park. There'll be some public engagement that they're going to be doing as part of that management plan update. So it's important that they have time in that 18 months to sort of answer that question. What else we've been doing as we've been furthering our conversation with state parks is we wanted to get a better sense from the community on what usage and need and interest would be. So we hosted a couple of community meetings. We had a sort of a site visit that we invited cricket groups and lacrosse groups and soccer groups to come see the fields, check them out, have a little bit of Q&A. So that was extremely well attended a couple of weeks ago. We then last Monday, hosted a online sort of Teams chat, again, not seeking formal field requests, but getting a really more honed in idea of what interests are within each of these sports groups. There's multiple sports associations within each of those groups, and also has given us a chance to manage expectations and making sure all these groups know, hey, as we consider these fields for the very first time in their history to be multi-use, not everyone's going to get their full wish. and how do we really want to balance in an equitable way use. So really supportive feedback from those groups. So everything is looking on track. We should be getting a beginnings of a draft interlocal agreement from state parks. Our goal, what we've shared with state parks, is we would really like to begin scheduling fields in August. Fall season, this could really help us in terms of really balancing our community field needs. So thank you again for that discussion we had last month, but things are moving nicely in that regard. Last item I had for an update, I did have one. Park tour. Hey, we talked about the park tour last month too, didn't we? Get ready, buckle up. July meeting will be a park tour. We'll have more details coming. What we'll plan on doing is meeting in a centralized location where we can all jump in a vehicle. Based on your feedback, we thought we'd sort of do a little bit of both, sort of looking ahead at what some of our next projects are and community engagement is. So going and spending some time at Tibbetts Valley Park, talking through that, heading up to Central Park, and in particular Pad 2, which is the 2 baseball fields. That is a high priority project with some community engagement coming. So spending time at those 2, also East Sunset Trailhead. Make sure I get the name right. It's sort of in between those 2 parks. So stopping there, talking about that, the importance of that project and what that trailhead really represents as our gateway to West Tiger Mountain. Getting a thumbs up there. And then ending our tour with sort of a look, an excited look at what a project starts to look like as it nears its completion. So having a tour of pedestrian park in Senior Center Plaza, as we'll probably be right on the verge of beginning to open those up. So that's the makings of the tour that we're going to shoot for. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Like it? Sounds great. And again, invitations open. Jane, Jeff, Diana, Hannah, any of our new members, if you want to just have it, Martha, anyone, if you want to have sort of a more in-depth individual tour that feels more like a windshield, rapid fire, hey, let's look at as much as the park system as possible, let us know, and we'll try and get that scheduled. Be happy to do that.
Definitely where you're thinking about it.
Doing what? That'll be our, so the park tour will be our July park board meeting.
Okay. On the 28th.
On the 20, yeah, the
28th, yeah.
I think it's the 3rd.
Yeah, 28th, July 20th.
July 28th. Yes. So we'll get the senior center bus. We'll all pile in and we'll do that tour all together. Yeah.
For those that haven't done it before, like last time we did it, they bring a van and everybody gets on it. Well,
And drinks.
get sheltered.
That's a very different tour. Yeah.
So that's different than the July 1st event, which conflicts with,
Yes, it does.
some of us might need to, skedaddle it 5 minutes to 7.
Totally understand. I'll probably make my way down there too. So yeah, Martha's mentioning the July 1st event that I sent to all of you. Please, if you're interested in going to that, do Forest convening at Confluence Park from 5 to 7. Exactly. Or 5:30 to 7:30. You're right. There is a 30-minute overlap. So
I was gonna teach you about it.
anyways, yeah. Oh, welcome to the department. Trust me. On any given night, we've got multiple things happening.
Well, summertime especially,
That too.
which is fabulous.
Yeah. So thank you. It's my director's report.
Great. Thank you. Next up is the youth chairperson's report.
We're done with school.
We have
School is out. We haven't, yeah, so I know every board just went through their recruitment and selection process. So I would imagine when fall comes around, we'll have a new youth rep or two.
I guess for my inaugural chairperson's report, I don't have a whole lot of them call it the July 1st event, the Bear Down Confluence. Just a couple, anecdotal pieces I thought I'd share, which is pretty cool is a little over a month ago now, I think, but my son, who's 8, was down at Tibbetts Valley Park and he's picking up some trash and putting it in the trash can. And the park ranger came by and gave him a little pin and said like, thank you so much for like helping our spot parks. And it like made his day and he wears the pin like every other day, like to school because we're using it today. So like really cool shout out to the parks rangers and
That's Alex Anderson.
so really cool shout out there. Made a little boys day and that's pretty cool. So, and then just again, thank you to your team and the parks team as softball's gotten going and adult softball and all those other leagues have been getting going. As I've been seeing a lot of your team out in the spaces and that's just great to have them out there. So, thank you. And then, extend a welcome as well if anyone wants to go on a random park tour with me. I'm happy to show them walking through the parks. I think I said it before, but I'm at least going to Issaquah Park every single. So, happy to share my experiences as well. So. Is there any other business? Okay, I need to officially call this. Our next meeting is July 20th. Will be the tour. We just discussed that. And with no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Good job.
Well done.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.